Hello out there in Na'aleh land. We resume honorable mention. We want to thank all the Na'aleh people, and of course mention today's class is Lila Nishus Racholeh Bas Chaim Tzvi Allah Shalom. Up until now, I drew very heavily in the course of this course from the masterwork of Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, which is called Those Shall Be Holy, and we're going to be looking, using as a source a lot as we continue from his second volume, which is Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. And this mitzvah to love your neighbor as yourself is probably the most famous commandment from the Torah. And it's quite remarkable how it's not taken usually very literally, and which is worthy of analysis. How do we understand this commandment? Perhaps the most famous words ever written, but you don't hear people talking about how they're going to apply this in their daily lives. When was the last time you heard someone say, I'm going to do something because it says in the Torah, you have to love your neighbor the way you love yourself? It's not a very common thing for us to hear. However, the Yerushalmi says in the Durham that is probably the Torah, it is the Torah's most preeminent command. There is no commandment in the Torah of all the 613 commandments to visit the sick, to practice hospitality, to comfort mourners. And all of these are cornerstones of Jewish morality. They're part and parcel of the fabric and being of what makes someone an observant Jew. And yet they're not recorded as a separate command in the Torah. And the Rambam learns they all emanate from this commandment itself, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you love your neighbor, then you're going to comfort the mourners, you're going to visit the sick, and all these vital mitzvot, it's part and parcel of loving your neighbor as you love yourself. But of course this needs greater explication. How about charity? All of that is based upon Torah laws, but what motivates us to be charitable and to help other people is an empathy which comes out of the way that we love our fellow person. If we love them, we care about them, then we have to act towards them in a humane way, in a charitable way, and in a philanthropic way. Actually, the compassionate idea of how we are to be towards other people, it grows out not only of this teaching of loving your neighbor as your fellow person, but it's also the idea expressed in the very beginning of the Torah that man was created in God's image. B'Tselem Elokim. B'Tselem Elokim does not apply just to a Jew, but also to a non-Jew. Everything is created. Every human is created in God's image. And not only that, we will learn, hopefully even today, that it also means all of God's creations, which will refer to animals as well. We have to act towards them in a humane way. Now this verse, that man was created in God's image, is usually used as the source of understanding of Kavod HaBrios. It becomes a critically important lesson in Slabotka Musar, which we learned about here in Na'aleh.com, and the way that Der Alter from Slabotka interpreted this verse, that the greatness of man, it all emanates from we are created in God's image. He calls this a cardinal verse. Now, if I understood correctly the interpretation as explained by Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg in Sri Dei Eish, he says that according to the Alter from Slabotka, Tselem Elokim means, in the image of God means, it means the immensity of human potential, the latent spiritual heights awaiting actualization. In short, there's potential within man to become godly. That's the greatness. But so we're creating God's image, we can be like God. We can actually become godly. But before we go to and I don't know if we're even going to get there because it's not pertinent to our discussion, but I want to relate what certainly has to do with being a mensch, the idea of Kavod HaBrios, of showing affording respect to each and every person. Let's give an example. Let us say you travel on a long distance. I don't remember if I ever provided this example. If I'm not mistaken, I once heard this once from Usher Rubenstein. You travel a long journey for Shabbos. My Israeli example would be you go from Yerushalayim to Tzfat, or if you wish, you can go from New York to Silver Spring. It's a long journey, and you left very late, and you had no chance, and you're such a big rush, you had no chance to eat anything. You finally arrive in the afternoon after this long trip, and your stomach's making concerts, and you so much want to eat. And they say, oh, come in, good Shabbos, and the aroma of Shabbos is wafting through the hallway, and you're already salivating, having this major Pavlovian reaction on steroids. And you come inside and the guest says, why, that painting on the wall is so nauseating, so vomitaceous, so fulsome, so miasmic. And the host whispers to you, I painted it. you want to eat over Shabbos. And then you say, I never noticed such drama, brushstrokes, depth, color in a painting before. Now, no one would be that moronic and imbecilic and idiotic to say it's ugly if only you see the signature of the artist. That's the whole idea, to see in every person the Yud K Vav K. We're all created in His image, see in every person the signature of God. That's what the Talmud says in Tainus. Let me read you this Gemara. I had this feeling we once did this in Na'aleh.com, but you'll pardon this repetition. I mean, tell me, folks, where else do you ever find a studio where you have all these Sfarim? Please trust me, it's not just done for background. So the Gemara says in Tainus, where's that Gemara? Here we go. The Gemara says,